So, should probably give you guys an update, huh? Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel. If you've been keeping up on my videos recently, you'll know that I have been having a lot of joint pain, and I don't really know why. I've gone to a bunch of doctor's appointments. The first thing I did was take a steroid pack because we believed it was hip bursitis, and steroids cures bursitis, or it's supposed to at least. So I took my steroid pack and nothing. After that, I was referred to an orthopedic doctor. The first one I went to was absolutely awful. Awful, and I will never go back to that office again. I then went to another orthopedic doctor and loved her. She is incredible. She did a few x-rays on me and told me that I not only had hip bursitis, which is when the fluid sac in your hips gets inflamed, but I also have hip dysplasia, which essentially means that my hip socket just isn't in place correctly. So she told me the combination of those two things was most likely causing my pain. She sent me home with a bunch of physical therapy stretches to do because I didn't want to expose myself every week by going to actual physical therapy, so she just sent me home with the stretches and told me to come back in a few weeks. I had my follow-up appointment a few days ago, and I told her that the stretches were helping, but they didn't fix it at all. Like, they made it feel less stiff, maybe a little bit less pain, but overall the pain was definitely still there, and really the overall level of pain had not come down drastically at all. Maybe a little bit, but not a lot. The doctor told me that the hip dysplasia that I had wasn't really bad enough to be causing this level of pain, even if you put the bursitis in there. She did refer me to a pain clinic where I will be getting injections in my hips. And I'm a little worried about that because the last time I got an injection in my joint, it was in my shoulder, and it was the most painful experience ever, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be the same type of shot. So I'm not looking forward to it, but at this point I'm really willing to try anything. So she is referring me to a pain clinic where they will be giving me injections into my hips, and hopefully that'll help with the pain. After that, there's not really that much that doctor can do. She told me that literally what they do there is total joint replacements, and I don't need that. I am nowhere near that level. So I will be trying these injections into my hip joints at the pain clinic, and we're gonna see what happens. We're gonna see if that helps. But I've also gone to a gastroenterologist, which is a doctor who specializes in the digestive system, which is where my autoimmune disease is. And the reason that I've gone to see a GI is, one, I've been having a lot of stomach issues. I can't eat without getting nauseous. I've been throwing up a lot. It's just, my stomach's not great. I have heartburn. It's just not happy ever. So we're trying to figure out why that is necessarily, because my ulcerative colitis, as of the last colonoscopy I got, wasn't acting up, or at least not to a level of like symptoms that I'm having. So we're trying to figure out why I'm having these digestive symptoms. But on top of that, there is a very big possibility that my hip pain is related to my ulcerative colitis. And that's just because it's a very common complication of the disease. The GI is essentially going to send me out for a bunch of tests to figure out what's wrong. The first thing is he's going to have me do a bunch of blood tests, one of which is going to be looking for inflammation levels. When you have inflammation in your body, there's different markers in your blood that go up. So he's going to be checking for that to see if that inflammation could possibly be causing the pain in my hips. We're also going to be doing an ultrasound of my gallbladder to see if that's causing my stomach issues, and an endoscopy, which is when they shove a giant tube down your throat and look at your digestive system that way. As of right now, I'm waiting on the pain clinic to call me to schedule an appointment. Same with the place where I'm going to go get the ultrasound of my gallbladder. I have my endoscopy scheduled for later this month. And really, I'm in pain. We don't know why. We don't know when we will know why. And we don't know if we can fix it. So the combination of all of those things led to me getting this. Jake and I have been talking about getting me a wheelchair for a little while now. And I actually filmed a few clips right before we decided to get the wheelchair and then after we actually bought it. So I'll make sure to include those in here. Jake and I talked for the first time last night. Well, technically it wasn't the first time, but every time we've had the conversation before, it's been like strictly hypothetical. But last night we talked for the first time seriously about getting me a wheelchair. And I don't know, I feel a sigh of relief in the sense that I would love to be able to move from the couch to the bathroom without being in excruciating pain. And I just feel like even if we get a very cheap wheelchair that we can just use around the house, because it's not like I can go anywhere right now anyways, that it would allow me to just move freely and not have to worry about asking Jake for so many things. But I also have this like fear in me, and I think it's, as somebody with an invisible illness, I always have this fear that like I'm faking it or I'm making it up or it's not actually that bad. I don't actually need it. And I do have a doctor's appointment with a specialist tomorrow. So we're going to talk to him about it and see kind of what he thinks. But I don't know. I feel kind of like I'm making a big deal out of it. But at the same time, I can't walk from the couch to the bathroom without literally wanting to cry. So it's confusing for me. On the outside, I look so healthy, but I'm just in excruciating pain every single day. So yesterday after my appointment, Jake and I came home and we bought our first wheelchair. Well, my first wheelchair. And I don't know, it was very emotional. I did not think that at 26 years old, my next big purchase would be a wheelchair. And I did get a relatively cheap one. It was about $100, which is a really good price for a wheelchair because, I mean, I don't even know how long I'm going to be needing it. But we also thought that it would be helpful considering how often my body likes to break down to have one in case something like this happens in the future, even if my hips do heal up relatively quickly, which I don't think is going to happen because I've already been in pain for 2 months. Now we're just waiting for the wheelchair to be delivered. And at first, I was really resistant to the idea of getting a wheelchair, but the more pain I'm in, the more excited I get. And I just keep looking and checking and waiting for it to ship. It hasn't shipped yet, and I just keep going into my phone and be like, has it shipped yet? Yet? When am I getting it? Because right now, the delivery date is anywhere from Saturday to next weekend. So I could get it really anytime, and I'm really excited. I'm really scared. I'm not sure. It's going to be different. It's going to take a while for me to get used to it. And my arms are weak, so my arms are going to have to get stronger. But I don't know. I'm excited to be able to be more mobile, to be able to move without thinking about being in pain. We went back and forth on it for a few days at least. And it was hard to make this decision. It was an emotional decision for me for sure. I didn't think that in my mid-20s I would need a mobility aid. And that's really, it's a big step for people, especially for people with chronic illness, because I at least saw it as inevitable for my life. I saw that at some point I would probably need some sort of mobility aid. I don't think that I'll necessarily need to be in a wheelchair 24/7 or anything like that. But there are going to be times that I can't walk, which, like now, it's gotten to the point where I can't even go and open the door for the dog to go and sit out on the porch without wanting to cry. And that's insane. I can't tell you how many times since I've gotten this chair that I've looked at Jake and said, I wish we did this sooner. Because it has just given me a sense of freedom and independence that I haven't had for a while. You see, me and Jake, we went from kind of splitting things. He was working and I was more taking care of the dogs and taking care of the house. And it worked. And then I started being in pain. And he had to pick up everything. If I wanted water, I had to ask him for it. If I wanted something to eat, I had to ask him for it. If the dogs wanted something, I had to ask him for it. And I felt like a burden. And he has never once made me feel that way. Not once. He has very actively told me that I am not a burden and that he doesn't feel that way about me. But it's really hard to go from being able to be very helpful to literally only being able to sit there, because if you walk across the room, you're going to be in pain. It really did not help my mental health. It also probably didn't help my physical health because, again, I had to ask for everything. So there were times where I was hungry or thirsty or had to go to the bathroom and I didn't do it because I didn't want to get up or I didn't want to ask. And that's not fair to me. I was hesitant to get the chair because in my mind, I always told myself I wasn't disabled enough. But there is no real disabled enough. If a mobility aid is going to help you and is going to give you the sense of freedom and independence that I've gotten just in the past few weeks of having this chair, do it. Just because you can walk, physically can walk, doesn't mean that you always should, especially if it causes pain. I think that a lot of people believe that if you physically can walk, you shouldn't get a wheelchair. That's kind of how I was thinking about it, and that's not true. I walk probably more than I should, partially because that's what I'm used to. And for me, sometimes it's easier to get up and walk than it is to try to wheel over somewhere. But also our apartment isn't exactly wheelchair accessible. For example, I can't get into our bathroom in this wheelchair. So most of the time I'll wheel myself down the hallway and then walk into the bathroom. So there are times that I walk. I probably am up on my feet more than I necessarily should be for the amount of pain that I'm in. But just having the option of being able to move around without having to experience that pain, it changed it. It changed the game. It changed everything for me. And I think that we as a society really need to look at the different aids that people with disabilities use and see them as that. No, I am not confined to this wheelchair. Even though I can get up and walk, even if I couldn't do that, I would not be confined to this wheelchair. That's such a negative connotation. I'm not confined. This wheelchair gives me freedom. This wheelchair gives me mobility. This wheelchair gives me independence. It gives me the option of not being in pain all the time. And that is something that I don't know how I did without for as long as I did. In these 2020 times, it's been a year, guys. It's been a year. And I think that we need to take all of the wins that we can. And for me, this chair, this freedom right here, this freedom to just move when I want to is everything. It's everything. And it's a huge win for me. There was one thing that I was a little concerned about before buying the chair, and that would be how the dogs would react. I almost trip over Charlie all of the time, so I was kind of scared that I was going to roll over him, which might actually be a legitimate fear because he does not move. My ridiculous dog is what I'm trying to film right now. This is insane, dog. And he goes right under.
Whoop. Really? Really?
Didn't move. Okay.
I hit it.
He doesn't move for the chair whatsoever. But I was scared that they were going to be scared of it. Instead, Charlie just does not care. He will lay where he wants to lay. And if I try to move him, most of the time he's just like, I'm good, Mom. Thanks. Sadie just looks at it like it's another chair. She tries to climb on me. Sometimes she gets confused because if I don't have the brakes locked, then I start moving backwards and she's like, what? What's going on? It's really cute. But yeah, I was scared that the dogs were going to either react negatively towards the chair, but really it's been the opposite. Thank you guys so much for watching. You have no idea how much your love and support really does mean to me. If you haven't already, please make sure to smash that like button, click subscribe, and ring the notification bell so that way you'll never miss any of my future videos.